Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webinar for the Digital Innovation Hub Sprint Exemplar Innovation Projects. My name is Amanda White. I'm Director of Communications and Marketing at Health Data Research UK, and I'm joined this morning by our lead for this webinar, Jerry Riley, who's Chief Technology Officer. Hopefully you can see us both on your screen. This is a new system that we're trialling, so please bear with us. We also have Graham Ward, who's working with Jerry and the team on this programme, who will be taking note of some of the questions. So we have an hour for the webinar, and we'd like to use most of that time for your questions. And Jerry will start off the session by going through the slides that you should be able to see on your screen. So the Zoom technology that we're using this morning has a chat facility. So if you haven't already found that, you should be able to find it along the bar, along the bottom of your screen. We would like to use this chat facility for the questions that are coming through. So please do post your questions and we will go through those after the talk and provide answers. We also wanted to let you know that we're recording this webinar this morning, just so that we can provide some feedback and an overview to people that were unable to join us today, as there's been quite a lot of interest in this programme, and we will publish the recording on our website at hdruk.ac.uk. So we will get started and I will hand over to Jerry.
Good morning, everybody. This is Jerry Riley. I'm Chief Technology Officer of Health Data Research UK. This is our second webinar in the series that we are running to provide context for the Digital Innovation Hub Sprint Exemplar projects. And as Amanda mentioned, we will be looking to use the first part of this just to give an overview of the program, and leaving plenty of time for us to go through your questions and discussion later on, and again remind you about the chat facility. So my intention with this morning's webinar to take you through an overview of the Digital Innovation Hub program. We're running this in 3 phases, so I'll briefly discuss each of the 3 phases. I'd like to then concentrate on the Sprint Exemplar. This is phase 2 of the project, what we're trying to achieve, the projects, some of the objectives, some of the problems we're looking to target, because in many ways, this is a fairly unique approach. These aren't traditional research projects. This is about research infrastructure, realizing the full utility of data at scale and infrastructure work, and then to look at how you can apply with plenty of time for questions and discussions at the end. So our overall objective really with the Digital Innovation Hub program is to look at what's needed to enable the UK, and that's researchers in academia and industry, to realize the full potential of the fabulously rich capability we have in health data in the UK. So it's an initiative to enable us to have that safe and responsible use of health data for both research and innovation. But the critical comment here is at scale. We are looking at the work from both the Sprint Exemplar project and next year as we go into the main Digital Innovation Hub program at solving the problems that prevent us today doing research at scale. That might initially be scale at the 3 to 5 million population level, but ultimately at the 65 million UK scale, because there is increasingly a set of complex, challenging, and potentially really important research problems in, for example, the areas of rare disease that require us to be able to do research at UK scale with very large populations. And today there are many challenges that make that either very difficult or in many cases next to impossible to do. And the Digital Innovation Hub program is a collaborative effort working from HDR UK, our funders and other people working in this space to look at how we resolve those barriers to innovation today. So what are we trying to do with the Digital Innovation Hub program? And this is really the whole program running out from here through to 2022. We're looking at a collaborative approach, building from the capabilities that exist today to build UK-wide infrastructure with common approaches to processes, standards, governance, and importantly, built on the principles of safe and responsible use of health data for research and innovation. At the heart of what Health Data Research UK is doing is public trust. So this, whatever we do, however we work, has to be based on very clear, very transparent, safe and responsible use. We will be looking in our main call this year, in May next year, to deliver 3 to 5 digital innovation hubs that allow us to connect populations of maybe 3 to 5 million, but actually the exact number is flexible depending on the problems we prioritize, that also have a thematic view that can then scale up to a full UK level population so that we can do future research, we can enable the future research to get to that scale. This is to allow accredited researchers and innovators from academia and from industry to appropriately access data safely and to secure and harness scientific knowledge and emerging technologies at scale. And what should be in our minds all the way through this is about public benefit, it's about patient benefit. So what we're trying to do here is enable new methodology, new capability, new infrastructure that supports future treatment. We have a tremendous responsibility and we have a tremendous opportunity to use health data to make game-changing changes to clinical intervention, to future treatments that will transform this space over the next 5 to 10 years. Importantly also, we have an opportunity to use this as a chance to grow and expand the life sciences industry in the UK, to build a vigorous SME and startup community, and to grow the existing life sciences industry so that we have a world-leading capability. So the timeframes, as I said at the beginning, is we have 3 phases. We have a dialogue and design phase that is underway and has been underway since the beginning of September. And the reason for running a long design and dialogue phase has been to allow us to get a wide range of input into the Digital Innovation Hub program. We want to be talking to researchers from academia across the NHS and from industry. We want to be talking to patient and public groups. We want to be talking to the consuming industries. We want to be talking to our broad range of HDR UK funders so that we've got an informed approach to where the most productive areas are to go with the digital innovation hubs in 2019 and with the projects through to 2022. The second phase of the project, and the area we will be concentrating on today, are the Sprint Exemplar Innovation Projects. The intent of these projects is to provide proof of concept, proof of utility for some of the ideas that will then go on to inform the main Digital Innovation Hub program. These are not intended as traditional research projects. They are intended to look at readiness for capability, and that might be infrastructure capability, novel approaches to de-identification, or perhaps to handling and analyzing imaging, to methodology, to research services that can be very rapidly prototyped over 10 to 12 months, and that can inform how we move forward. And we'll go into this, I'll go into this in a little bit more detail over the coming slides. These will inform our design for the phase 3. And the phase 3, as I mentioned earlier, is to build 3 to 5 digital innovation hubs, which will cooperate together to build complementary research and innovation use cases, working with industry, working with the NHS, and working with academia, with a very clear tie-in and benefit to health and social care in the UK, but working, importantly, not as silos, working as a single interoperable group, looking at common approaches to data standards, common infrastructure, common governance, common approaches to areas such as IP. So we are not looking at these as siloed organizations, but complementary and collaborative organizations that can work as a whole to improve the situation for innovators, for researchers at UK scale across a whole range of themes. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide. What we're looking at is, as we look at what's required to underpin the digital innovation hubs, there's a lot of areas that are worth exploring. And these are potential areas for those who are preparing bids for the phase 2 Sprint Exemplar projects to be thinking about. There are the whole areas information governance. We are absolutely committed to an ethical and secure use of data, and therefore novel approaches to information governance provide a really strong and robust framework are important. That closely relates to data security. As we look at interoperability, a lot of the value of data in the UK will only really be truly realized when we're in a situation where we can combine together novel data sets, and that drives us to have to think about interoperability. How do we do de-identification? How do we do pseudo-anonymization, but in a way where we can still retain the appropriate linkage? What standards are required? There's a whole rich area as we look at how we do novel analytics, be that traditional or be that AI and machine learning. And importantly, to look at how we can really drive forward is the whole area of data management. If we're to look at some of the challenging projects that exist, you clearly need to be able to do discovery, you need to be able to understand what data sets are available, how those data sets have been used in the past, what the possible linkages, and also how you might access those data sets and what restrictions might be applicable to those data sets. So there's a whole rich area of metadata management, lifecycle management, and that we need to look at. So these are some of the rich areas that I hope we can explore with the Exemplar projects. So some of the rules of the road. So in a moment, I'll look at some thoughts and options, and I know many of you are probably well into thinking about your potential submissions. But as I said, this is not a traditional research call. So we are looking to develop out the technical solutions, the research services, the knowledges and skills that can build robust, secure and scalable solutions. These are demonstrations of concept. They're proofs of concept, proof of utility. They're not intended, these are relatively short, relatively small projects, but sufficient to demonstrate proof of concept. And I certainly would like to encourage people to be brave in what they what you bring forward, so that we can challenge some of the difficult problems that we face, even if we may find that in some cases we don't fully succeed with the projects in the initial round of work. The successful projects will receive between 100 and 400K of funding. We have a total budget of 3 million. So this means we will be looking to fund probably somewhere between 6 and 8 projects. And the funding cycle is that submissions need to be in for the 7th of December. We have a expert panel scheduled to take place on the 14th of December, so we'll be able to communicate results very shortly after that, with the objective that projects are up and running in February and will be complete by December. So these are short, sharp projects. The projects must be delivered by a consortium that must include academia, NHS and industry. All three must be present in the consortia, and the lead applicant must come from either the NHS or academia. And if you've got questions on that, and I know there have been in some previous discussions, please feel free to ask those when we go into the Q&A shortly. We're expecting the projects to demonstrate close working partnerships between the partners, including the regional NHS organisation, says advanced data science capability, and a connection into clinical know-how, so that we can deliver a novel and scalable use cases as part of the Exemplar projects. This is an open competition. It will be judged by an expert panel. I know I've had a couple of questions about whether there are effectively topics that we pre-selected, and the answer to that is no. We've kept this very open. I will in a moment go through some areas that we think we'd be interested in seeing ideas from, but that's not an exhaustive list, and I fully expect to see some really innovative ideas coming through, so that there isn't a pre-selected list. This will be a genuinely open and transparent assessment, and we look forward to a broad and diverse set of submissions. One important point, because with the full DIH call in May of next year, is receipt of funding for a Sprint Exemplar project is not a prerequisite for participation in the DIH call next year, nor will it be viewed as an advantage. These should be viewed as separate calls. We expect the work from the Sprint Exemplars to inform the bids that will go into the Digital Innovation Hub program call in May next year. But the way we are running the Sprint Exemplars will be done in a very open way, with research days sharing the experiences, such that everybody who's preparing potential proposals for May next year will be able to see and benefit from the work that goes on in the exemplars. So what are some possible areas to think about? And I've met with a number of people preparing bids and had calls and questions, so I know this is far from an exhaustive list. So interoperability is going to be a critical area. So we need to look, if we're going to build the ability to do analytics at scale across diverse sets of data sets, we need to look at what tools and processes we need, what common standards are needed, how we manage de-identification with diverse data sets, but in a way that we can maintain linkage, and also be able to re-identify if we need to respond back to adverse events. We're interested in how we do secure data storage and how that can be done in a way that deals with, in some cases, very large volumes or multidimensional data sets, but also in a way that allows us to look at how we do analytics, both to data that can be moved, but also to some of the critical data that needs to be kept behind perhaps NHS firewalls and cannot be moved out into other environments. So we want interested in approaches to distributed analytics and in novel uses of distributed machine learning. We want to look at how approaches to onboarding of tools, both conventional but also custom tools, but also dissemination of results. Today, that's largely a manual process. So as we look at scale, we need to be able to look at whether we can make a more effective use of tools, of automation, but also in a way that still retains the security characteristics that we require. And as I mentioned, one of the most critical needs here is how we do discovery, and therefore how we do federated and syndicated metadata management in a way that facilitates discovery across the rich and diverse set of assets that we have in the UK. So how do you apply? Hopefully we've got you all excited over this webinar and previous events. The details are on the MRC website. So please read through the specification and the guidelines for applicants. Hopefully at this stage, you're already looking to bring together your partners and collaborators. As I said, reminder that you will need that all in place for the application. And the closing date is 9 AM prompt on the 7th of December. And we will be doing a panel review, which I can confirm will take place on the 14th of December now, so that we can inform successful applicants quickly thereafter. So one or two other clarifications that I'd just like to put in before we move to questions and answers is this does have to involve industry, academia and the NHS. There isn't flexibility there. This is an industry-led piece of funded work, and therefore we want all three participants and we're looking for those to clearly all be active, so that each individual organization's contribution to the project will have to be evident in the submission. The IP approach we've taken is shown in the guideline for applicants. This won't be the same for the main phase 3 DIH bid, but for the phase 2, because we wish this to inform further work, we have taken an approach based on some MRC guidelines that allow for a very open approach to sharing. And therefore, it is important to take a look at those guidelines and ensure that all the parties in your consortia are comfortable with the IP guidelines as they're laid out. And also with the contributions to industry, it is possible for there to be a contribution from this funding into industry, but it is restricted to SMEs and to a cap of 100K. And again, that isn't an area with flexibility, so it's important to understand that as you look at the industrial participation in the consortia. So with that, I know for many of you, you probably sat through that 2 or 3 times now. For some maybe new, I'd like to open this up for questions. Please use the chat. If you have other questions after the end of the call, please do contact us. We have an FAQ running, which we will continue to update. But I know we're getting into the last few weeks before the close of the call, so please don't hesitate to contact us if you have questions after today's webinar. But with that, I will open up for questions and discussion.
Thanks, Jerry. You want to be able to see your chats box on here? Yeah. Click more. No. Oh, there at the top. Chat. There you go. So we've got a couple of questions coming in already.
Okay, can you just please?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a question on. So let me just. So can a large company be involved but not claim any funding? Yes, absolutely would encourage large companies to participate. There is no minimum contribution, so there's not a matched funding or a minimum contribution required from the industrial participant. But for large companies, there won't be a funding out to the large company. That is restricted to SMEs.
There's some above that as well.
Yeah.
It's easier to start at the top. It's the first one.
Okay, so this is separate from the digital pathology. So this is for a question from Stuart Watkins. This is separate from the recent digital pathology bid, though closely related. We are working with the successful digital pathology centres, and certainly as we look at the infrastructure capability, we are keen to look at opportunities for interoperation between the digital innovation hubs as they come out in 2019 and the DigiPath centres, but this is a distinct opportunity. From Ben Patton, yes, this is a fully funded sprint. Match funding is not required, and there is no minimum contribution required from industry. There's a question on the expert panel. We will very shortly, I'm going to look at Amanda.
Next week.
Okay, next week we will be putting the list of the 11 members of the expert panel up on the HDR UK website so that you can see who the expert group will be assessing the applicants. So that will be available by the end of next week. The funding providers are the funding providers through to HDR UK, and that is on the website, isn't it, Amanda? Our list of.
Yes, the funding for this is the UKRI.
Yeah, so the funding for this is UKRI Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund, and the HDR UK funders are, which is our broader Health Data Research UK, are on the HDR UK website. But this is an ISCF funded, as is the Digital Innovation Hub program itself. Let me go down. There's a question on, can the industry participant be from overseas? Yes, I expect in some cases we will see the industry participant being a non-UK based organisation. I think this is going to be the case in quite a lot of cases. There's no restriction that it has to be a UK based industrial partner. This one?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay.
The question from Chris on are you involved or do you involve with health economics costings for potential projects? I'll take that. We'll take that one offline, Chris, because I'm not certain what the right answer is for you on that one. Question from Mark about purchasing from a large company, not a partner. In your bid, it will be possible for you to show the costings of purchases that you need to or desire to make. Just emphasize that if you're just purchasing from a company, you will still need an industrial partner as part of the consortia. We are expecting these projects to be consortia, so I would suggest viewing those as two separate activities. There's no issue with proposing to purchase, but that won't fulfill the requirement for there to be industrial participation in the consortia. There's a question from T. Bartlett. Can we consider opportunities to explore projects that may involve NHS Digital? Absolutely. We would be happy to receive projects that included NHS Digital, Public Health England, etc., as part of the consortia. There's a question, is this a one-off call or will there be a repeat call for Sprint Exemplar Innovation Projects next year? We do not anticipate there being a repeat call next year. We are very specifically running these projects as a way to establish initial proof of concepts that will help inform the Digital Innovation Hub main program next year. So it is unlikely we will run another round of Sprint Exemplar projects, though it is possible that we will run other competitions next year, but there won't, certainly I'm not anticipating a need for a second round.
Mental health.
Question from Dazzler on, is mental health included? Yes, absolutely no reason why you can't put a project submission in that is oriented on mental health. Okay, so question from Donna on the no coupling between phases 2 and 3. Yes, I can confirm that there will be a completely separate competitive process for phase 3. We are in the early stages of developing the prospectus for our phase 3 competition call, and we anticipate at this stage that competition will be launched around the start of May 2019, with completion somewhere around the August, for completion of the competition in the August, with awards following that, but that will be run as a separate and distinct competition. There's a question on guidance on the breadth of the projects. What extent should they focus on individual aspects, or can they cover more than one area? That's entirely up to you. They don't need to cover just one aspect. They can be broader than that. The only guidance I'd give is that these are short, sharp sprints. They must be complete by December of next year, and therefore, if the scope is too broad, it might look challenging in terms of actually being able to get to completion next year. And obviously, the achievability of the project is going to be one of the criteria that the review panel will look at. So that whilst I would encourage people to be brave and to be looking at projects that might have a degree of risk, we will need to review whether the scope looks reasonably achievable in the time frame with the funding that's available.
So there's a final one from Mark.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Mark. I'm just getting to yours. So I'm having a little bit of problem with the chat window. So yeah, you've got some very specific questions. I'll quickly go through them. That I think this is probably going to be a quick email is probably called for as well, Mark. You're welcome to include a Gantt chart in addition to the 4-page limit for the work plan. I would say that we've tried to keep the proposals that need to be submitted to a manageable number given the size of the grants. I'm happy to flex that a little bit. So if you need to go over limits a little bit, then that's going to be absolutely fine. But what I didn't want was to make it too onerous on people, given these are relatively small amounts of money and short, sharp projects.
I can answer the next one if you.
Okay, go on.
Shall I use your mic? So Mark, the question about the Excel templates for the budgets, that is available on the MRC's website as well. So if you go to the main page where the competition is hosted, on the right hand side you can see the documents to download, and one of those is the Excel templates. So Mark, I've sent that to you by email this morning, but for anybody else listening, you can find all of that on the web page.
At this point, I can't share any further detail on the bid evaluation. However, if you read the guidelines to applicants, you'll see what effectively the criteria are we're going for, how we're likely to score the projects. The thing I would say is this is about proof of concept and proof of utility. We will be looking to fund a diverse group of projects. So some of this will be based on having a spread of projects, because we're trying to inform what goes forward. Therefore, clearly funding multiple projects in the same space, unless they're going to bring different thoughts, different ideas, different methodology, is probably something we will steer away from. To Jordan, do we have to bid against specific categories such as infectious diseases? No, there is no specific set of themes. Yes, Simon. Thank you, Simon. This is as Amanda mentioned, that download the spreadsheet for the budget, and that will help you clarify the costs. Did you want to comment the last one when we had indirect costs for academia come through?
I can't remember the answer to that.
Okay.
I'll pick it up later.
Yeah. Okay, let me they're still coming in. Yes, services, to Philip Harfield, yes, services can be funded. Again, this is back similar to one of the earlier questions. Services can be funded and you can buy those from large organizations. But if you're purchasing from a large organization or purchasing them from a small organization, that is not likely to constitute industrial participation in the project. We are looking, with industrial participation, we are looking for industry to be actively collaborating in the delivery of the project and not there just as a provider of software, of infrastructure, of services. Simon, yes, storage costs could be covered as well as software costs. So there was a question about whether there's a medium Slack channel, Google Groups to find an NHS or academic partner. I think you've got to reach out through your own networks and groups to find partners. As I'm sure you'll realise by now, we have a lot of interest in this call. HDR UK is actually a comparatively small organisation, and whilst I'd love to be in a position where I could matchmake between potential partners, we actually don't have the facility and bandwidth to do this.
Could I just add there, one way of doing that might be to contact your local academic health science network, because they have contacts across NHS organisations and academic partners. So they might be able to point you in the direction if they've got some ideas of projects that are similar to yours, and they can perhaps make some introductions. So that would be a suggestion from me.
So there's a question from Justin, can consortia submit multiple projects? Yes. No restrictions on consortium submitting multiple projects, no restrictions on participants being members of multiple consortia. I'm well aware of several universities who are involved in more than one consortia. So yes, multiple projects can be submitted. And there was a question on, does industry mean life sciences industry, or would analytics industry partners work? So industry doesn't mean life sciences industry. It is just, there needs to be active industry participation in the consortia. That could be life sciences, it could be analytics, it could be broader than that. It just needs that active industrial participation.
I think that's all the questions that have come through. Yeah, we can save them.
Okay, so we still have a couple more minutes. So if you have any more questions, I'll keep the chat open for a minute here. So otherwise, as I said, if you've got thoughts and ideas that you want to raise later on, please do contact us. We still have a few weeks to help you with bringing forward what I'm fully anticipating to be a rich and really interesting set of project proposals.
I just wanted to add a couple of points about the events and other opportunities to get involved. So if you've had a look on our website or follow us on Twitter, you'll have seen that we are running an event on the 27th of November in the morning at the Royal College of Physicians. This event is specifically aimed at industry users of the data, and the purpose of the event is to help shape the specification from an industry perspective. So if you haven't already registered your interest in attending that, please do so, and you can find the details on our website. Places are limited for that, so we will have to review the registrations and then confirm attendance, and we'll be doing that early next week. The other thing that we will be doing is a series of regular online Q&A sessions, and I think we'll probably use the Zoom technology to do that. So we may, we've got one in the diary on the 12th of December, obviously that's beyond the exemplar deadline, but that will be at 12 o'clock until 1 o'clock. And we are also considering running another hour's Q&A session on the 27th of November. That will be in the afternoon, but all of these dates will publicise via our website, so please do keep a watch on that.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions coming through the chat, so I'd like to thank you all for your time today. I'm excited to see the projects come through. As I said earlier, I think we are at a moment in time where we have an opportunity to make some really major strides forward in how we use health data at scale in the UK. So really excited to see the projects come through that help us make that leap. So thank you, everybody, and I wish you a good day. Thank you.